home office in it anymore. Like wherever I can put a desk, even if it's like in a crazy nook in the hall, like there is a desk in every single unit. 1 bedroom up to 5 bedrooms, I'm gonna find a place to put an office. Because, I mean, not everybody is as cool to work on their like dining room table or their countertop. And if your kids are home from school, you need multiple places. You know, someone can be in the dining room, somebody can be in the kitchen, somebody can be behind the closed door in the office. Like, you need these multiple spaces. So obviously offices and any outdoor space. I don't usually stage outdoor spaces prior to this, but now I'm finding like every little balcony, like that has to look its best. So finding real plants, getting them to plant, you know, colorful fall foliage right now, like that is your best bet, just to make it feel like any little outdoor space is, you know, people just like, I need it. I can't feel trapped. So I would like highlight those things for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up the outdoor space. So we found that the way I've been trying to describe it is we found people are up to 4 spaces off on what they're hoping to have. So if you have 1 person working from home, they're 1 space off. If you have 2 people working from home, maybe they're 2 spaces off. If they have children that they need a room away from one of those home offices, maybe they're 3 spaces off. And if they don't have outdoor space or the right amount of outdoor space. So it's like there's 4 things now that maybe didn't exist 3, 6, 9 months ago that people are struggling with. So Mia, it's a good point to stage the outdoor space, stage the home office, and then for Christina and Gail, those downtown high rises not having, you know, 1, let alone maybe 4 of those spaces, plus then not having the huge draw to West Loop restaurants and the downtown restaurants, has been a big struggle of how to connect pricing versus demand right now.
So I have a question for the realtors. So with what you guys have mentioned already, in addition to that, visitation is down, and it continue probably for the near future. What plans or technology, in addition to what you guys have talked about already, are you guys planning to move forward with to try to drive traffic, whether it's virtually or in person, to those properties?
One of the things that I find, I don't know if it's actually working, but I feel like people like to watch like the Instagram stories of properties. So like if you're doing an open house or at a showing or a walkthrough, I'm getting tons of views on those. Like I don't have that many followers, but I'm usually getting like upwards of 200 people watching these Instagram stories, and you can kind of see how many, if they're like following through from story to story to story, and they are. So that is, you know, I think that I've definitely seen an increase in some of that social media stories on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, great point. We have a marketing director who analyzes our analytics, and we've seen a 4-time increase in the number of interactions with our Instagram stories. So that's for sure. Yeah. And more reason back to Gail and Mia, you got to make sure your photos are on point.
I love the idea of bringing the stager in, Mia, like early, because to not be the bad guy, the one who has to say, oh, you have to take all these pictures off the wall, and they're like, oh my gosh, I just, you know, they're all my family photos. To have someone else come in and do that is just key. And you know what the competition is as well throughout the other properties in the area and what people, the market is looking for. So it's really great to have that extra voice and that set of eyes that's considered the professional, versus, not that we're not professional, but we're not interior designers. We have, we know what we see in the market and what people like, but it comes off, or, it has so much more weight when it's coming from you. So that is, it's great to use stagers.
Yes, absolutely. You let that third person, that impartial person who has no real skin in the game, if the place sells or not, you let that person be the bad guy and tell them all the bad news, all the things that they need to take down, their family photos, their religious icons, all the, I've seen so many basements that are like kids' playrooms, but like it's overwhelming. Like it's all kids' toys, and you're like, okay, we need to like corral some of this, and you need to kind of maybe even get a storage unit for some of your items. And nobody likes to hear that you have too much junk in your house, but you let that third person do it, and then you get to be the good guy who says like, oh look, we have, you know, people coming, we have offers. Like you get to be the good news person, and you let somebody else be the bad news person.
To connect Bill's question with Mia, then what's everyone's thoughts on virtual staging?
I'm not a huge fan of it because it shows well online, but sometimes you can definitely tell that it's virtual staging. Things kind of float in the room and it doesn't really look, and you can't tell what size the furniture is. So if you go then to the house and the house is empty and you're like, well, what size, this looks like a normal size bed, but what size bed fits in this place? And people really can't envision it. They're like, is this a normal size bed? Is this a queen bed? Is this a king bed? What size bed fits in here? Or will I only be able to have like a full, which is like, I mean, who even has that anymore? So it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's false advertising, but it just doesn't really give people the true, you know, look that they're trying to figure out what to do and if their furniture will fit in the space. So I think you need to have real furniture in there. Now we do use it a lot in outdoor spaces, mainly because that's like a whole other, you know, when you're, especially in those bigger buildings, you have like, you know, kind of a common space and you can't really like touch, you know, like a building's like stuff, even though it might not look the best. So that's when a lot of people kind of put in like a virtual outdoor space stage, but there's just not a substitute, I think, for real furniture in the space to give people the impression they really need.
I think it's a good way to kind of test as well. You can, you know, test the virtual staging. It might be a little bit cheaper of an option and see if that kind of spikes activity or gives people a little bit of perspective to get them in the door, and then kind of use it as an evaluation on, okay, well, now that we've maybe used this online and gotten the pictures, because there is such an online presence right now, that maybe it helps get them in the door and then evaluate the feedback from there. And if it just doesn't take them to that next level, then maybe getting it actually staged, you know, is the progressional next step. But kind of touching on what everyone's been saying, I think making every showing count, really, where it almost feels like a little less of a forgiving market, right? Where in years past, we'd get showings, we'd get tons of foot traffic at open houses, and you know, we had the activity to, you know, have better odds of getting someone to see past maybe that paint that just needs to get done, or you know, that bathroom that just needs to get freshened up or something like that. Because now what we're seeing is, at least personally, just a little bit less confidence in their decision making. And, you know, any doubt that we can kind of take out of the process of, okay, well, do I really want to do this maybe minimal work like painting a home? Taking that question mark away from the buyer's decision making is just one step closer to that offer process for them.
So that's a good point. So I'm finding a lot of people not really willing to paint their kitchen cabinets. So this is actually a good use of the virtual staging, is when you can show what the actual kitchen looks like and then painted with like white cabinets or dark cabinets, whatever the trend is for the neighborhood that you're in. Like you can show what is there and then show what could be, so that people can kind of get the, you know, white cabinets are very in right now. Everyone wants white cabinets, but that's not always going to be the case. So all these people who are painting their cabinets white, in 10 years, people are going to be like, oh, I wonder what this kitchen looks like with wood cabinets, and you just revert it. So like, it's not a bad idea for people who aren't really maybe willing to put in that type of, you know, updates, but then you still get the look that the buyers are looking for, show them what could be.
Yeah, it's a great point. How do you balance the online? We can do some great technology, and what Bill mentioned, like how do we get more people driven in? But it's about, especially today's buyer. In general, this has been trending for years, but today's buyer is very experiential. And so, yes, I do agree the virtual staging is a great way to maybe get more interest online, but then it's, as we found, there's a big disconnect between expectations online and then they're really disappointed when they get in the property, and it actually sometimes creates the exact wrong experience versus under promise and over deliver. Everyone's online on their photos, and we have to nail the online marketing, like Gail mentioned, and be more creative with online marketing, as Bill mentioned. I actually still would love to hear what everyone else is doing, but creating that experience with that buyer, as Keith mentioned, is more important than ever, because they already know that they're interested because of the online marketing and the extra marketing and 3D tours that we're doing. So it's all great points.
And that's why I think the showing is really critical as well, like Keith was saying, because you have to make this a great experience from the minute they walk in the door, and have it really pleasant, really positive, and bring people in, show them the condo, but show them the building, talk about the neighborhood, and really give them a real well-rounded experience where if you're just leaving keys for them, they're not feeling that, and they're not getting, the whole picture. So I think as all of us working together, I just feel like we're a team in our industry. Even though we're competitors, we have to be a team, and we have to work together, and we have to be positive together. So, really making that all work, and never have, creating any kind of negative anything when you're doing your showing. Keep it all absolutely as positive as you can, and making sure you're showing up for the showing. It is the first step to it.
So actually, I'd be curious to talk about that. So in March and April, we were not showing any occupied properties at all. And we were able to sell a handful of properties just virtually, and then we did an in-person inspection. But if a property was vacant, we were providing access, but we were not accompanying. We were doing key and lockbox just to minimize. And with everybody's technology, people have webcams and security alerts. So we were able to actually track how long someone was entering the home and then when they were leaving. We actually found that buyers were spending more time in the property when we weren't there as a listing agent. But we were still having that conversation of creating the experience for that buyer beforehand, of having a call with the buyer saying, are they familiar with the area? What's important for them? And then having almost coaching the buyer's agent on how to do the showing and giving them a full list, actually 1 to 3 pages on the unit, the property, or the building, depending on the type of property. So we were still able to create that experience that Gail is mentioning, but then actually buyers were spending more time in the property when we weren't there. And we still sold just as many properties when we weren't there. So I'm actually starting to challenge, how do we still serve that role and give the buyer the space they need if they're not comfortable with being with extra people? So I'm curious to know what everyone else's experience is. Christina, I see you smiling.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like one of the things of my business is that I've always attended or had someone on my team attend the showing. I always thought like I helped the process. But no, it totally makes sense. I know, Ross, you had mentioned earlier that you're doing more in the suburbs, and I have ventured out to the suburbs this year, and you see more lockboxes, and I just had an aha moment. Yeah, we were spending a lot more time in those homes. We were arranging the rooms, and half of the showings would be agent accompanied, and the other half would be on lockbox, and my buyers would be like, oh, we actually like it when it's a lockbox. So I could see they can get more emotionally involved and talk more freely, get emotionally involved in the home.
But you just need to make sure that any of their questions are still answered, because Gail can be there to play off of the buyer and answer questions and make sure that, because as Keith mentioned earlier, if a buyer leaves and they aren't 100% sure they want to buy that property, they're gone. They're back on their phone looking at 100 other properties. So how do you combine the two of get them that experience and feeling free, but then still get them also all the information that they need to have the best showing, which is what we're usually there for. So maybe we should all do virtual accompanied listings and have the buyer's agents hold us FaceTime, so the buyer can turn us on and off when they want, but we can still answer any questions.
I had one of those at the very, very beginning of like the shutdown. The agent was like, FaceTime me when you arrive. And then we talked to him, super nice. And then we walked the property, and it was my first COVID offer that we did the entire process during the shutdown.
I also think it's partially what space are you working in, right? You get someone like Gail Spreen in Streeterville that just knows absolutely everything about the building, that can just give you the most informed showing in person. I think there's value there. Compared to maybe, a 3-unit walk-up in, say, Bucktown or something that's pretty straightforward, and you can brief over some, maybe building insights and, different maintenance stuff and age on some various things. But I think it kind of weighs in what space you're competing in and what space that you're selling in.
Yeah, for sure.
So going back, we were talking about the suburbs. Ross, I just did like my first suburban deal in a long time. I was wondering, with us doing a lot of condo sales and whatnot, having to do sewer inspections, radon inspections, what advice do you have as some of these agents who have been so used to doing condos? What should we be looking for when we're showing homes that we should be thinking about and talking about before even the offer and the inspection?
I don't know if there's that much of a difference for suburban homes. Obviously some communities have slightly more restrictive building, enforcement than others. For instance, you go to Wilmette or Oak Park, and they're tough. So just you want your clients prepared if they're going to be making improvements to get involved, right? It's just so much easier to ask for permission than forgiveness. Chicago typically is a little bit of just a slap in those communities. It can be a full-blown like takedown tackle, and they can make your life miserable, because then you open up yourself to so many other areas where they want to start peeking around. Regarding sewer, it's really more about age. Very quickly, I would recommend anybody, even new construction, to get it, just because we've seen full-blown separation from new soil settlement. We've seen bricks in sewer. We've seen sewers that were incomplete. So it was a matter of time until somebody flushed a toilet and it came right back at them. So it's really more about insurance for us. Radon, which is becoming obviously more prevalent, and we're finding more of it just because we're testing more for it. And it's indiscriminate. We found it very, very close to the lake, but it's a soil-based condition, right? You need igneous rock below ground. And I could have radon, and Christina, you could live next door to me and not have it. So we just don't know. And, if you test and it comes up low, good, you're good to go. Hold a record, test in 8 to 10 years if you feel like it. If you're on that kind of cusp, we always tell people your lungs don't know the difference between 3.5 and 4.5. So mitigate and just put it behind you. It's not expensive in the grand scheme of home ownership. And then just find out what your restrictions are, what you can do. Some communities, you can't cut trees down without going to the village. You can't even do arboring without going to the village. There's canopy restrictions. So it's just you want to get involved with the community just so you know what you're getting into. And please stop staging homes so clean, because when I come home every day, I feel inadequate.
Yeah, Mia, you're officially not invited over. I was gonna invite you over to dinner, but this kid stuff should be not away. So you can't come over. Sorry. Just kidding.
Why don't you guys come over to my very clean non-kid house?
It's okay to have kid stuff, just have it in one room in one area.
I wish.
Which is not realistic on how you actually live, but.
Oh no, staging is not for living. It is for show only. I tell that to people all the time. So even when you're doing occupied homes, I'm like, we need to figure out like a realistic solution for you. I always tell people, clear off an entire cabinet in your kitchen for those things that you need every day, like the bottle cleaners and the blender and like whatever you need for everyday use, that you can just shove in this one cabinet. Same for bathrooms. And then you can like take that out and use it every day. And then when your realtor says, hey, we have a showing, you just shove it all in that one cabinet so that it's out of sight.
I had something that I'd like to maybe ask the group, just kind of, and it's always interesting when we run into each other in the field and we have that quick 5 minutes to kind of chat about how's business, what are you seeing? I guess I'd be interested to see like bold predictions 6 to 12 months out, kind of what, in this, I guess it could be anything, right? And people's opinions could vary on different things depending on the locations, but, I'll ask Jeff, do you have any predictions for kind of, a 6 month to 12 month forecast of what we'll see in various spaces?
I appreciate you getting me involved. We all think it's a tough, there's so much up in the air between the election, between COVID, between, the looting downtown. I mean, you have a lot of headwinds that I think if any of those spike back up, it could delay things returning to normal. The one thing I will say is that, as you guys know, I'm currently in Florida, and what's fascinating is having left Chicago a few days ago and coming to Florida, they just implemented yesterday in Florida no mask wearing. And I know for some people that's, it depends on where you stand on that. But the one thing that, from a real estate perspective, that really is eye-opening is how people are returning to normal. But even though they have they've waived the restriction, people are still wearing their masks. So it's a really encouraging sight to me that I think if the downtown market can keep crime and things, in my personal opinion, I think the crime is what has driven most people away from the city. I think COVID made people appreciate more space. I think crime was what made people question whether they want to be downtown or if they'd rather be somewhere else. So in my opinion, if we can keep that under control and have people have that sense of security again, living downtown, I'm pretty optimistic that by 6, 12 months from now, people will be returning downtown. But I will say, will the demand be where it was pre-COVID? I don't know. I'm a little bit more pessimistic on that. So I do think that might lead to a, somewhat of a correction in pricing. But I do think that if we fast forward to this time next year, the city will be back to, the city that we used to know. That's just my thoughts.
I would agree with Jeff on that because I'm chair of the Lights Festival, and we're going to, we're going to be, we have our big TV, ABC, televising it on the Saturday night of November 21st. So we are working on a number of different ways to create that production, but we're also not trying to bring people so much downtown in large numbers, but how do you create experiences and things for people to come downtown December, January, February, March during the slow time. And I agree with Jeff where it's like, we need to have them feel safe. And that is the most important thing at this point. And I think because I think a lot of people have very short memories. When we were back with COVID in March, April, May, then we had the looting on Memorial Weekend. By July, it had an energy down here like, oh, everything's back to normal. The boats are going out again. People are around. And so the August 10th looting was the one that really kind of, really kind of stopped that. So we need just some months of people feeling safe again. And I think, like I say, short memories, we'll have a lot of that energy coming back. And hopefully no COVID resurgence, where I don't see Chicago having that because we have been very careful. And so I think all of those steps are going to help. We just really, having the city open up the restaurants to 40% level now as of like today is going to help because we got to keep some of these restaurants surviving through this. So we're always trying to encourage everybody to support your local restaurants and bars as much as possible. But I do think when the other part of the picture, I think, is when these offices are like, you know what, we got to get some of these employees back downtown. They got to come out of their parents' basements and houses, and they need to come back to the office at least a few days, during the week. Then I think you're going to see some of them coming back down, and we'll be picking up maybe on the rental side, but maybe some of the sales as well. Because, and some of the attorneys I've talked to, they're like, you know what, it's really hard to work remotely with the younger attorneys, because they need to be like meeting the other ones and talking and having that direct communication. So I think as we feel more comfortable COVID-wise and the offices start bringing some of their people back downtown, that will help our market as well. So hopefully we'll see that as we get into the fall more, which only makes our whole world exactly upside down this year. From having a crazy rental season during the summer, which we normally do, which we don't have, and then potentially hoping to have, it might not be a crazy rental or sales, but it might be more people coming downtown because they have to get back in their offices. So, looking forward to hopefully some of that happening in the next 6 months. And then in 12 months, if festivals and restaurants are open again next year and next summer, I expect more people to come back downtown and say, oh, that was all 2020. We're in 2021 and all is good again. So I think very positively and optimistically.
So
Bill, sorry, Mia. I was just wondering the forecast for mortgages.
So forecast mortgages, I would say, what we've seen is rates at historical lows. And I don't see that changing in the near future. When COVID first hit, the biggest thing that we saw was the jumbo lenders pulling back on a lot of their products. And then that was kind of, short-lived because a lot of them have come back to what they were offering prior to all that. So that's positive. As we get going forward, I think the momentum will be there. The only concern is obviously a lot of people coming out of that forbearance stage, those people that had the relief of those mortgage payments, if that delinquency starts increasing, we might see a little pullback in the near future with that. So just depends on what the numbers are going to start showing, because now that the forbearance period is over, unless something comes out from the government to extend it or a new program, we'll have to see if that helps avoid any higher delinquencies. So we're kind of seeing that. Going back to what Gail was saying earlier, and I think it's key is, for next year, as far as all of us and the city is concerned, the safety is obviously the big thing. Events, kind of make a hybrid of events. Obviously, I don't think that the city or the state are going to allow, 40,000 people at Wrigley Field next year, but something rather than sitting on a rooftop, which I was at earlier this year, which was great to be at, but also weird to be at because it was almost like there was no game going on. It was just strange. The whole atmosphere was kind of depressing, even though you were at a Cubs game and they won, it wasn't there. But if they do somewhat of a hybrid and it's the weekends, it's the events, it's the restaurants, we're not going to be full capacity, but I think the numbers obviously are going to drastically improve going forward, if we get to that point and when we get to that point.
Bill, do you see I know you're really busy on applications. Are they refis or what's your percent that's like buyers, first time buyers, second time move ups, or refis?
So, a high percentage of loan applications are refis these days. We did see a slowdown. I think Christina mentioned earlier around Labor Day, wasn't getting as many pre-quals coming in. That's changed in the past 2 weeks. And now it's a big uptick of pre-quals. We've seen a lot of clients that get pre-qualified, whether they're first time or buying an upgraded home. They're getting a contract within a few days or a week even, which is outstanding, great for the real estate agent and myself. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, how many homes have you looked at? But we talked about that earlier, that not as many people are looking at the 50 homes anymore. They're probably looking more deeper online. One of my realtors was kind of doing a hybrid of what you guys had mentioned before. Do they stay for the appointment, or do they just do it let them be kind of thing. What her team does is they will be at the appointments to introduce them to the property, but they'll leave shortly after that. And I think that's a good added feature to kind of point out some things and maybe envision that buyer being in the home, and then letting them be in the home by themselves, because I think, that helps them be a little more free and, not pressured, and just be honest about the property itself, and maybe stay in the property longer as well too, as Joel mentioned earlier. So yeah, I think, as far as going forward, rates are still going to be low in the near future. The election, we'll see what happens with that, but even still, the economy is still down, still high unemployment numbers, and I think that's going to keep us driving down rates until we get, into the spring market.
Bill, quick question for you. Because I know you're more, Wintrust is more focused on, I'm not sure if it's Chicago or just the Midwest in general, but in terms of foreclosures and things of that nature, what's your pulse on how big of an issue that will be? Because my take has been that I feel like people, you guys have done a better job of having people who have equity in their homes. There might have been some appreciation over the period. So I'm just curious where, how big of a factor you think that will be moving forward.
That's a good question. We haven't really had that conversations with management yet. It's the good news with Wintrust is we can lend in all 50 states. So, I'm doing loans here in the city, but, I just did a pre-qualification for a client in Florida. So it just, we were doing loans in all 50 states, and now we're servicing probably about 90% of what we close. So obviously that's a key going forward, as far as foreclosures, because obviously we're servicing it more than we ever have. And that'll be a key clog in us if we start seeing a big, uptick in foreclosures. So that might just, change some of the philosophy behind what we keep and what we sell. But, the purchase market, I get some contracts still within, 30 days of closing, when I get them, and I'm be like scratching my head, but, we are in a real high application market. So I usually have a call to an agent right away and just, set expectations right in the beginning that we could have a challenge closing in, 29 days on there. But going back to Jeff's question about foreclosures, we haven't come across that yet, but obviously it's one I'm sure the upper management and the people in the backgrounds are definitely monitoring that daily.
What has everyone seen in terms of their activity levels? So Bill, you mentioned you're seeing a lot more refis as opposed to new applications. On average, what percentage are you up or down in terms of your typical showing per week, or is it still too dependent on property type?
I would say that I am down on my showings enormously. But when I do get a showing, it seems like it's a much better showing because they have looked so much before. The other thing that I think is totally weird, this is like where everything is upside down, is that normally on a weekend, we're doing open houses, but I am like booked, showing. Now, you get a couple showings a weekend, but they're more looking during the week, which I kind of take that, to one degree, like Christina was like, how do you like trying to balance like your work and your life. It's like, oh my gosh, I can take a day off on a weekend. How weird is that? Just because during the week, I'm getting a lot more showing requests. So I find, and it's probably because when people are working remotely, they have a lot more freedom in their schedules maybe. And so that to me has been like a real benefit of all of this, being able to like take a day off on a weekend. So I find that like fascinating.
For sure. What is everyone doing to keep joy in their lives? I know Christina was talking about taking time off, and so that's most important. We can't show up for our job, for our clients or sellers or buyers, anyone, if we're not showing up our best. So what is everyone doing to bring joy?
Great question.
I went sailing all last week. It was fantastic.
Cool.
I saw the posts.
Golfing a lot.
That's for sure. Weather's been fantastic.
Repeat that.
I said I've been going golfing a lot, not a lot, but weather's been, we've had a great weather summer, you know, which is, I think, a bright in all this cloudiness that we've had. The weather's been fantastic. So hopefully that trend continues through our winter for all of us, obviously, and, you know, get more opportunities to get out more than we have this whole summer.
Yeah, I feel bad that the rest of the world could not enjoy our Chicago summer this year, because it could have been such a positive thing for Chicago to have all these things going on with such great weather. But, you know, I just find this as such a unique time that the residents, you know, if we don't have the 55 million tourists that are downtown, to be like, you know what, enjoy this, because we will never see this again. To have like your neighborhood almost like, you know, like considered the off season. Like I used to live in Aspen, Colorado, and you just loved the spring and the fall when all the tourists left. And you actually, it was just, you know, the off season, there was all the locals. And that's how I feel like this summer has been. It's like, oh my gosh, it's just the locals. It's everybody who lives here. We'll never see it again. So instead of like thinking of everything being so negative, you know, think of it as being this positive, unbelievable opportunity to enjoy your neighborhood and your neighbors, you know, and your community. Even though you have to be careful and everything, but it's really an amazing time that someday we're going to look back on this and go, wow, was that crazy? But was it kind of a gift also to, you know, to us? I mean, it's just an amazing time, I think. So you have to look at it in all different ways.
That's such a great framing reference. Thank you for that, Gail. I truly thank you. Thank you for that framing. That's great. What can we embrace? What can we control? And that's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, it's totally a good lens to look through it, look through things, look through the world for.
Yeah. So what else? You know, in 6 or 12 months from now, no matter what happens with the market, what are the good things that come from this? So hopefully more time in nature, more time with our family, embracing whatever our new reality is, more time, more flexibility with our schedule. Christina, you better be taking off some time for yourself. Schedule yourself first. What else? If in 6 to 12 months from now, no matter what happens with the market, we all said we nailed it and we didn't lose this valuable time, as Gail mentioned. What's happened?
I mean, I even think learning to Zoom is like something that it's like, wow, we never would have been forced into, you know, doing all these remote, like Zoom meetings, or my family has like a Friday night Zoom call where if you can get on, I mean, I've got a big family I come from. I am more connected with my family this year than I have been in decades. So, I mean, even that has been a benefit of this time.
For sure.
Gail, I would love your input on this. I know, as we discussed, you know, traffic has probably shifted downwards after August 10th. In the past 6 weeks, how has traffic been on your listings in Streeterville and Gold Coast? Has it just been slow the entire time, or have you been seeing spikes at, you know, random weeks?
I have seen a little bit of an uptick. From like very little to a little bit of an uptick. So it hasn't been anything significant, but I have stayed steady on a Saturday. Instead of busy on a Saturday, I've stayed steady, which I wasn't, you know, previously. So, and I'm getting some showings in the evenings, even where, you know, I haven't had that. So I've seen a little bit of an uptick. So I feel good about that, but it's nothing, you know, hugely significant.
That makes sense. Thank you.
That's cool, guys. Hey, I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so we're about a minute out. Thank you all for jamming with us this fine, what is it, Tuesday morning. It's been great chatting with everybody. And Joel, I mean, to your point, and Gail, to your point, I mean, the Zoom thing, once we did the first few ones of these, I just kind of was throwing mud at the wall. I got a couple realtors on. I'm like, yeah, that'd be a good idea. Let's get some realtors, some of our partners, talk shop. How's everybody handling this whole freaking world and situation? And people got off of it and they're like, this is cool. Let's do that again. Now, obviously, you know, next week, a week, you know, you don't want to have too many people, and too much connection, I think, can be, I don't want to say negative, but it's like, you know, let 2 months go by. Ross, I think you were on one of these, you know, 2-3 months ago, and it's like, hey, yeah, let's do another one. So if you are interested in doing another one of these, email me. We'll shuffle the deck, get different realtors, different partners on, just to reconnect our community. But even when in-person stuff does resume, I have no reason to believe why we still won't keep doing these little mini collab sessions. So just thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Obviously, I'm cool with going a minute or two over, but I know you're realtors and you probably have to make a phone call or text or return the 58 notifications that have blown up on your phone since this call started. So I will leave everybody. If you got a bail, cool. I'm going to stop the live feed right now. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
everyone.
I gotta run.
See you all.
Yeah.
All right, live feed is stopped. Thanks, everybody. If you got to go, do your thing. Return emails, return phone calls, text, and I'll send out communications if everybody wants to follow up with one another. So appreciate everybody.
Okay.
Thank you
All
for
right.
being
Thanks a
Thanks,
lot.
Andy.
Yeah,
everyone.
guys. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Adios.